Good morning, everyone.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Today this is Art Matters New York. We're happy to have today with us a native South Florida artist, um, Skip Measelle, and we welcome him to the show. What you're looking at right now is a photo of his studio. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
So, is this was this prepared for this photo? The arrangement of pictures around the studio, or is this the way it always looks?
This is the way it looks. This is
Wow.
a kind of chaos that I work in all the time, and I didn't set anything up. This is the way it looked when I took the picture. Nothing is,
Great.
placed in any particular place. It's 1,600 square feet, 17-foot ceiling, and I'm shooting this from a loft up above.
Great. Okay, let me read a short little introduction. Um, when you were a guest artist at Studio 1608 in West Palm Beach, Florida. Um, they said South Florida-based artist Clarence Skip Measelle has been a full-time creative force since 1978, with a master's degree in art education and a career spanning over 4 decades. His work reflects a deep exploration of traditional and contemporary techniques, blending photorealism with innovative mixed media. Skip's career began with a groundbreaking solo show at the Norton Museum of Art, leading to exhibitions worldwide and placements in notable collections, including the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum. Skip's studio practice incorporates everything from airbrushed photorealism to unique textures made from recycled materials, each piece inviting viewers into a world of discovery and artistic experimentation. I can say now that we at Art Matters New York are thrilled to welcome this celebrated artist, where his work continues to inspire and push the boundaries of creative expression. So join us in discovering Skip's celebration of the aesthetic of uncertainty. I guess those are your words, which you'll explain, um, and witness the layers of meaning in each of his vibrant works. So thank you for being here today, Skip. And I guess I'm going to show you one more photo and then we'll just take a look at some of your works and we'll give you free rein. I just wanted to show this because this is also more than fascinating, I think. Um, this is an amazing photo. You want to tell us what this is?
This is the sink area that I work in. I've been in this studio for 36 years. And so when I first moved in, I put paper on the floors and the walls, and that paper is still there. Every time I scuff it up, I put tape on it, but on the walls, I wipe my brushes off so that the paint doesn't go down the drain in the sink.
Right.
So my walls now, after 36 years, people offered to buy, the paper off the wall. But anyway, I did that because I didn't know how long I could stay there when I first started renting the studio. And I have this month-to-month contract for rent with my landlord, and he's been really good to me. But anyway, that sink has a lot of history, to it. I mean, everything I've done in the last 36 years involved this sink area.
I mentioned before when we were setting this up that it reminded me of kind of this deep, excavation, and it reminded me of Francis Bacon's studio, whose studio was, well known to be just an archaeological site. And, that whole studio, I think, is now in a museum. And I can see, this, what I'm looking at here, I can see this as an installation, like an Ed Keenholz type of installation in a museum. It's just great. It's so,
Skip, have you made a photorealistic painting of this photograph?
That would be a really ambitious project, and to try to get I think it would make a better print to begin with.
right. The way it's framed, there's in this photograph, it actually looks like it is a chunk of reality, like inside of a frame, you know?
I call it my altar because I'm there so much.
Yeah.
It reminds me a little bit on Daniel Spörri, his tables,
Yeah, absolutely.
Used coffee cups and this and this and this and a lot of things going on.
Right.
It's a wonderful photograph.
It is. It's great.
Thank you.
So, I'm gonna let you guys take over now, okay?
Okay, you're gonna stop sharing, right?
Uh, let's just take a look. Hold on, one more thing. Why don't I see this? Oh, here it is. Okay, and we'll take a look at one more little piece of ephemera, which would be this. And you can talk about this, Skip. So these are some photos.
I was born in Daytona Beach, which is 40 minutes north or south of Flagler Beach. And these are shots of my mother with me when I was a month old in 1947. At the bottom, if you can go scroll down to the bottom, a little further, that trailer is that's my first home.
Wow.
And, there was only one place on the dune. It was a gift shop restaurant, and there was nothing to the north or the south. This was on the west side of the dune, and the lady that owned the restaurant rented this trailer to my mom and dad, and she took the wheels off it so my dad wouldn't steal it. But anyway, these are my humble beginnings, and
Wow.
there's a lot more to this story, but we won't talk about that now.
That's great. These are wonderful photos. And thank you for showing them.
Great. Yeah.
They're terrific. Okay, so I'm going to stop the share now and you guys can take over.
Red painting. Yeah.
There you go. Good.
Okay, this is a painting from, I think, 1968. Back then, I was teaching at a junior high school in Lake Worth, Florida, and I was painting on the side. And I'd graduated from college, and this was a type of painting that I was trying to develop, where I would go to the beach and sit on the side on the seawall, and I would photo people taking showers at the shower in Palm Beach. And so this is a compilation of a lot of those people. And my technique was to keep the bodies all flat, one color, and then anything that I was going to put in as far as kind of patterns would be stripes. And the stripes would all be vertical stripes, except for that one blanket on the left there. And after I had been doing this for a while, can you go to the next one? I was also doing beds. This was my wife, and I probably painted 20 other paintings with different sheets and different patterns on the sheets, but this was all still hard edge. And I wanted to get into some modeling where I would have value changes on the flesh. And a friend that I was teaching with loaned me his airbrush. And I'm self-taught. I didn't have any instruction, but I started to play with that until I could get the paint the right consistency to be able to spray it. And then that led to more of the photorealist work, which is coming up here.
So on these first two pieces, were those just brush on canvas? And what was the medium? Were they acrylic?
They were brushed. Everything was taped off.
Okay.
And the tape was sealed so the paint wouldn't go under the tape.
Right.
So I get a really sharp edge everywhere. But
So, and they were
where
acrylics or oils you were working with?
all acrylic.
Okay.
Everything you see here is acrylic. This is
Hmm.
the first painting that I took a long time to paint. And I mean, and it was one of my first early airbrush paintings. This is the Fla Airmotive. That's a hangar that's still at the Lantana Airport.
Wow.
The plane on the bottom right, that's a Cessna, and it's some kind of exotic special type of Cessna. But I painted that about 6 times, and one of those paintings, a 60 by 80 inch, is in the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum. It's not in the one on the mall, but they have an annex.
Oh, I've been to that. It's
And
nice.
the annex is even larger than the one they have on the mall as far as the space for their work.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Skip, my question here is that you decided to go with a very the composition of this photo and what's in the photo. It's very casual. It's a very informal photo. There's a truck parked in there. There's a few planes. They're cropped. You know, and so it has a particular offhandedness, like of a snapshot, as opposed to like a formal, iconic, let's say, photo. What were you thinking? And like, why did you decide on that uh, composition and format? Because I find that interesting.
Picture go up a little.
You understand?
Yeah. What I was doing, I've always been interested in the illusion of space between items, between objects.
Right.
And reflections. And so I've done that with shadows and with the airbrush, because you are able to paint without leaving brush marks. I could do this very soft kind of painting without the line things that you would get from a bristle, type brush.
Totally.
But this was something that for me, it was like a challenge, because I'd seen other photorealist work.
Right.
In mind, the first generation photorealists.
Yeah.
And some of them, I mean, they covered a lot of different subjects, from automobiles to the figure to planes to, I mean, just about everything. And each one of those artists had a sort of a signature look with those. And this for me was just a challenge to try to do something that was similar with the airbrush and as photorealistically as I could make it.
Right. Well, I think it's really well done. It's incredibly well done. You must have been super happy that you accomplished
I
the
like
challenge.
also the blurred reflection.
Yeah.
Which is actually very interesting, that it's blurred,
What year was this?
This was, I think, 1971 or 72.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So interestingly, with regard to photorealism, it's not about what it is per se, because it's like you can choose almost any photo, right? You can choose a photo,
Right.
just a snapshot, and reproduce it. So it becomes about the painting, applying paint to a surface, right? And creating, illusion, creating whatever happens to be in that photo. But it's not about the subject per se. And that's what I really like about this. I mean, clearly there's a subject here. It's all about, airplanes, and there's a hangar and so on and so forth. But it's really about, how do we paint? What do we paint? And I find that really interesting. And you did it very well. It's absolutely successful.
Skip, did you take this photograph, or where do you remember where you got this photograph?
Yes, it was at the Lantana Airport, and I took probably 100 different photos there of different planes and different juxtapositions of these planes.
Lantana, Florida, South Florida.
Yeah, Lantana is in South Florida, south of Palm Beach.
Because what I think is also very special is the color scheme here, which is just this bluish, like a a fading old photograph you found. You know what I'm saying?
That was a decision that I made. I mean, it probably was a little more gray, but I chose these colors.
It's great. Really
Yeah.
good.
Okay. Yeah.
Very good.
That's
Terrific.
This next one, this is the art shop where I bought most of my materials back then. This is in Lake Worth, Florida. It's no longer there, but it was there for about 50 years. And this painting, the reason I did this, I wanted to show 3 different areas of realism, in that you're looking at the outside of a building and looking through the glass, and you're seeing the inside of the building, and you're also seeing the reflection on the glass of what's outside on the street. That's the Lake Worth Post Office to the right, that building. That's a reflection. That was my Volkswagen Bug that's on the right down there, that was parked in front of the place. And anyway, these were great friends of mine for years and years. And this is where I got almost all of my art materials and stretcher strips, canvas. They framed some of my work there. It's called the Art Shop.
Where is this painting now?
This was bought by one of the Whitney sons of the Whitney Museum. They had a restaurant called Peter Dinkle's in Palm Beach. And I don't know much more about it other than that, but they bought it for their home. They lived on Breakers Way in Palm Beach.
It's a nice painting, definitely.
Fabulous.
Very, very good. So which is the painting and which is the real person here?
That's me about
okay.
It's about 30 some years ago. And this is a friend of mine's friend who, she was a model, of course. And I was trying to do something a little more abstract here, because the abstract part of her is also part of the painting that is behind her. And also I was working with the airbrush, and this is, I probably painted 20 or 30 paintings like this, just mainly for the value changes and the flesh tones and things that I could put in it. But also I wanted to show that I could paint the figure, and that was part of the reason I chose that. Here's another one. These paintings also, by the way, are pretty big. Like this one is like 48, no, this is 50 by 70.
Wow.
And the model here, she used to own let's see, it was a steakhouse in Boca Raton, and she dressed up like this on weekends.
This photograph is your photograph?
This is a painting. This is all airbrush.
Yeah, but from a photograph you made, or is it? It
Yes.
looks a little bit like Helmut Newton type of, Helmut Newton.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, but no, this is a photograph. This is mine.
Okay. Yeah.
I have a lot of other ones of her too. I mean, all, different positions. This is the one I chose for the painting.
Yes.
Did you do, so this painting, as you said, was 50 by 70. Did you do multiple paintings this size at this time of these kinds of subjects in black and white, essentially? Or was this just a one-off?
Well, no, everything that you see here is usually part of a series. And that series could have anywhere from, I don't know, 4 or 5 of a similar subject to maybe 20 or more. When you see the mason jars that are going to be coming up, I probably painted 40 or 45 paintings of mason jars, and they were also very large paintings.
Were these ever, like, for example, the picture that we're looking at now, were they ever shown as a group in a gallery?
Well, they were shown in galleries. Yeah, the one motorcycle. was shown in a gallery called Peter Drew Gallery that was in Boca Raton at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, the model ended up buying the painting.
That works.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Did you
If it's flattering, if you make a flattering, painting, it's not uncommon for the model or, to buy it. I mean, it's not normal, but it's not uncommon either.
Also, she commissioned me to do a painting of her husband on his Harley. And that's another story.
Okay.
I missed it maybe, but how big is this painting, for instance? How big?
How big is
50 by 70 inches.
And this is approximately, 50 by 70. That's the size of his painting back
Huge.
then.
Yeah, they are huge.
Great.
Okay, I bought this house with a pool, and the reason I did a whole series of swimmers. I used to teach at Palm Beach State College. I taught painting and drawing there for 10 years. And I would have my models, some of them come over in the summer and swim in my pool. And I had an underwater camera, and I would just take hundreds of photos. And this was a friend of mine's wife that volunteered. She wasn't one of the models at the college, but this reminded me of a scissor kick. And so that's the title of this. Can you show the bottom? Don't you? But when I bought the house, I saw the pool. The pool's 20 by 40, and I saw all of these reflections and things in the bottom of the pool. And it was like, I just had to do, some work there. So every once in a while, I still go back. I still have references. I probably have 5,000 slides of different references that I could use, not just of pools, but of all the things that I've painted.
What I find interesting here is that the figure could be almost out of an animated movie. It's a bit unreal.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting. It could be like a film still of an animated movie.
Thank you. Yeah.
beautiful?
Interesting.
I painted, I don't know, I can never remember all the numbers, and it's just probably 60 or 70 different paintings of vintage automobile reflections. And that's me in the reflection taking the picture.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my wife and son at the time that I took the picture over to the right. And this picture, this was a painting that went to a gallery in Highland Park, Illinois.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was sold there.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, this is not, well, I mean, you could answer this or not. It's not, but, when photorealism was happening, how did you kind of navigate that time? Because, I mean, there were these are wonderful paintings. They're consistent with what was happening, the interest in this painting at the time. And there were some very well-known photorealists, that came to our attention, through, museums and so on and so forth. Did you try to, or were you involved in kind of navigating that?
Well, they were definitely inspiration. Louis Meisel's book, Photorealism, was a great find for me. I bought it at the Chicago Art Institute back in the 90s. And it had like 10 years of all the first generation photorealist work, mostly in black and white and a lot in color. What I was trying to do, I was always trying to distance myself from doing anything that looked just like anything in that book. And these are from my own photographs. These were done a lot of them were in a park across the street from the Intercoastal in Lake Worth, where they would have antique car shows. And so I would go and take photos every year when they had these antique car shows. And I was trying to find a different kind of abstract juxtaposition of the view, not a full car. I rarely ever painted all of a car. It was about the abstract information that I was seeing in the reflection. And there isn't any way you can't be compared to some of the other photorealists, but the first generation photorealist, they're in another world as far as the photorealists, especially in as far as sales go.
Yeah.
And I knew that I wasn't, part of that generation, but they were definitely inspiration. And I moved around a lot. Most of those artists painted basically the same subject matter over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Different views. I've painted figures, cars, mason jars, leaves, shiny, waxy leaves, and only because this is what I wanted to paint. Now, I live here in Florida, and so a lot of my paintings also have, I think, a Florida feeling.
Yeah.
I agree.
These mason jars,
Beautiful.
It's great.
Ball Manufacturing produced these mason jars back when canning was all done with mason jars.
Yeah.
And they were in Ball State University is there because of the people that were producing these mason jars. They eventually went into aerospace, and they were making different types of clay and glass for nose cones that were going to be, shot to the moon. And this was a subsidiary then. But when they first had these mason jars, they had so many of them that they didn't have room to store them. And they had fields of hay that they would put down, and they just lay these mason jars out. And there were so many mason jars that sometimes geese would land thinking it was a lake. I mean, we're talking, acres of land. And they have a book that you could do that research on if you want. But anyway, I filled these mason jars with different things. I used shells, I had buttons, I had people, I put all kinds of things in these mason jars. I also, I've been a part-time teacher most of my life too. And I would give assignments where my students would have to put something, use the mason jar as their subject, but they could put anything in it they wanted. I approached Ball Manufacturing about them doing like an Absolute ad, the Absolute vodka
That's a
ad.
good idea.
And then everyone could be using their ball jars, and they could use those in their advertising. But they weren't interested, and they told me I should be careful not to steal their logo.
Oh.
But then I did research on that, and I wasn't really stealing their logo.
No, of course not.
Thank you.
I mean, fortunately, Andy Warhol was a precedent, right? And was stealing all kinds of logos.
It was Rauschenberg. I mean, a lot of major art. Jeff Koons. I mean, a lot of people.
Yeah, totally.
It's appropriation, I guess.
So before you move off of that, so how long does it take to paint a painting like this?
Most of them average around 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks, depending on how complex they are. And that's just working on one painting.
This is very complex.
I have paintings going. Some of them I've had for years that I haven't finished, but I can go back to them anytime I want.
Yeah.
With realism, you have to really, concentrate on that one time. At least for me, I couldn't stop. I had to keep going until I finished each painting.
Oh, are areas taped off when you use an airbrush on a painting like this?
Anytime you see a sharp edge, that was taped off.
Okay.
And other areas, there's a lot of freehand too, but like the outside of the jar, things like that.
Great.
The wire top on the top of the jar, things like that. They're taped off, for the accuracy of that line, that angle.
Did you ever sell a painting to Jimmy Buffett?
No.
Okay.
Sold a painting to Senator Bill Bradley, though, that was in his office. And
he was good.
He bought one of my automobile paintings, and the reason I think he bought it was an old Buick, an old black Buick, and on the license tag in front it had USA, and I titled the painting "Made in the USA," and I think that somehow that clicked with him. And
can I ask a little bit something about something technical? How is it? How is it done? photorealistic painting like this? Are you make a projection of a photograph on the wall, or how do you do, how is it done?
Most of the photorealists, Audrey Flack would be a really good example, projected what they were painting.
Right.
And Audrey Flack has pictures of the projection on her back while she's painting.
Mm-hmm.
And she's painting in the dark sometimes with that projector. But most of them, to get that accuracy, especially when you're doing something, if it's an outdoor, photo, the sun is changing, every 15 minutes. And you really need to work from a photograph if you want to, work from one light.
Right.
And that's what I would do. I took slides of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I work from those.
I love the color range, the palette in this particular one. Just, the subtle shifts in the, rust browns, whites, and then of course complemented by the blue. It's really beautiful.
But these are all in jars still.
Yeah.
That I still have.
Oh, wow.
And so I could paint them again, put them in different light, different angles. Maybe not all together in that arrangement, but I have almost all, I think, of those shells. And I have a large collection of mason jars too, by the way.
Can you go back down one more second? Now, what's with that paper with the deckled edge, or
That's like a perforated paper. And my idea, I put this in a lot of paintings at the time. I was trying to maybe have some kind of an identity that would separate me from a lot of the other photorealists.
Oh, interesting.
And so you'll see that, not maybe here, but in other paintings I've done.
I like it.
And this is another 50 by 70 inch painting. And so those and all that, the shadows and things. And once again, I've always been interested in the illusion, of depth and three-dimensionality.
That's really an important element, that perforated edge.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's you think that these things are sitting somewhere in front of a beach, an ocean, but then you come down to the bottom and you see this deckled, or the perforated edge of the paper. So it throws everything into a kind of a confusion.
Jackson Pollock said, every great painting should ask a question, or every great painting does ask a question. And so I was kind of thinking about things like that, like, what is this?
I like that. It's great.
This was a painting that also was in one of the car shows, one of the antique vintage car shows near the Intercoastal in this park that they had every year. And once again, I'm looking at the reflections and the distortions in the reflections. Instead of giving you a whole front view or any, entire car, this was my subject matter. And you can take liberties a little bit when you're doing something like this, because the reflections are distorted to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
This painting has a great story. This painting was in a Norton museum show, and it was a guild show, I think. It was members of the Norton. And the painting, this is another one. I think this was a 50 by 70. I use that size a lot. But the title of this painting is "My Love is Bigger Than a Cadillac."
Right.
I met the person who bought it several months after she bought it, and it was in an opening or something at the Norton. And she said, I bought your painting. She said, "Do you want to know why?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And she said, "Well, 30 years ago or 25 years ago, my mother told me that I should marry this gentleman that I was dating. And he was driving the exact same Cadillac that this painting was of. And so it fit that she gave it to him for an anniversary present.
Oh,
And it's called My Love is Bigger Than a Cadillac. But this the same color Cadillac, the same year. I didn't even know, what it was as far as the year was. So I was looking at it. I did some paintings that one painting I painted, I called it Condo Cadillac because the grill reminded me of a condo.
So that phrase, was that from a Buddy Holly tune?
I think it was it was either a Dylan song or it could
It
have been.
wasn't Dylan, it was before him. It was like some blues, uh, rhythm and blues song. Like
Yeah,
Muddy Waters or Buddy Holly or something like that. My love
that,
is bigger than a Cadillac. I remember that. Yeah.
that's where the
It's a
title
good
came.
line. It's a good line.
is a good line.
Yeah.
There was a blues bar in Lake Worth upstairs. It used to be a pool hall when I was a kid, and they turned it into a really great blues bar. It's called the Bamboo Room. And I knew the people that put this together. They were blues aficionados. I mean, they knew everything, about blues and the history of blues. And they commissioned me to do some things for the bar. And so there were two panels like this on each side of the bar that I was commissioned. I found these old photographs from New Orleans and Memphis and different places, and I put together 7 different paintings. 2 of them were, I think, 12 by 15 or 12 by 17 that were on each side of the stage. And then is there another one after this? Okay, then this Cadillac and the bus, that's a New Orleans Musicians Union Club photo that I appropriated for the background there. But the Cadillac was cut out of what's called signboard. A signboard is a real flat, smooth board that has sort of a paper finish on it. And I had my mill cut that shape out for me. And I painted the Cadillac on that shape, and it stood alone on one side of the bar or the stage, and the bus was on the other side. And I kept these in black and white because they had a light system where they could change the lights from red, blue, gold, yellow, and they looked really good, on the black and white images that were up near the stage. They had, unfortunately, they sold the bar, and the people that bought it had rolled up some of the canvases because they hung unstretched, the building in the back and the other one previous to this. And they put it in the basement and it flooded, and they were ruined in the flood. I don't know where the Cadillac and the bus is now. I know that the original owners of the bar have that blues painting on the right, and that I appropriated that from an old blues calendar or poster. Yeah.
Very cool.
By the way, I just did my homework, and it's Buddy Holly, and the song is Not Fade Away.
Okay, yeah, that's a great
My Love is Bigger Than a Cadillac. Yeah.
Yep. Where are you going now? You gotta go. We already saw that. This is going back to the beginning again. This is going back to the late 60s when I was doing the hard edge and I was keeping all the lines vertical except the flesh. This is before I got my first airbrush. This is an airbrush painting that, like I said, I moved around. If something caught my eye and I wanted to do it. So this is a photo of pears that I took in a crystal bowl that I think was a wedding present or something at one time. Can you go up a little more?
Nice.
Okay. Anyway, it was a study for me.
Very nice.
Beautiful.
I mean, it's interesting. Marie, can you move the cursor, which is sitting right there in the middle of the, there, great.
You could see that. Sorry about that.
Okay. But it's interesting when you can basically paint any photograph. So then the the issue becomes, well, what do I paint, right? Because you have the skill, the
Yeah.
know-how to paint anything.
Yeah.
It's all doable. So then it becomes a real concern, right? As to, well, or not, or you just go, I don't care, whatever catches my eye, I can paint.
Well, that's true, but also when you see the painting in the flesh, it's obviously a painting. It's not a
Yeah.
photograph. People think, well,
Right.
why don't you just blow up a photograph? Well, it really
Oh,
looks
no.
it really looks different when
Yeah.
you see
Of course.
the actual painting. I mean,
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
this strawberry was on the cover of an early cultural council brochure. And I put that tape up there at the top to sort of look, once again, make it look a little different than just a strawberry.
Sure.
This is a small painting. This was probably about 18 by 24.
Mm-hmm.
So once again, here we are doing more fruit back when bananas were 40 cents a bunch. It's the same mason jar painting. Also, I have friends in the Bahamas, and I used to go over there quite often. And what I did is I took both Pacific and Atlantic type fish and put them together, and I called it Fantasy Reef.
Love it.
A collector that lives in the Bahamas purchased this. This isn't that large either. This is probably about maybe 38 by 40 something.
Is it harder to paint small with an airbrush, or is there no difference?
No, I think though working larger, that every painting has more presence. I tell my students, I teach at the Armory Arts Center in West Palm Beach 2 days a week, and I've been there since 1987. But I tell them, if it looks good small, it'll probably look even better large.
Yeah.
So a lot of my larger paintings, they take longer, and there's actually more to do. It's about the same amount of difficulty as far as the actual painting. But I think, if this was, an 8 by 10 or something, it wouldn't have anywhere near the presence that a larger canvas has.
So I have one more question just about the material using an airbrush. Do you buy acrylics in jars or tubes and then thin them so they can be sprayed? Or how
Yes,
does that work?
I do. And I'll give a plug to Liquitex and Golden Fine Art, Golden Artist Colors. Those are the two that I use the most. I have to thin the paint with water, and it has to be filtered through a screen mesh into a small jar, small airbrush jar.
Mm-hmm.
And there can't be any lumps at all. It'll plug up the end of the airbrush. And the paint only lasts for a few days before it begins to coagulate and begins to be a little stringy or thicker. And so you have to remix the paint often, unless you can put it in an airtight container for a while. But I usually don't paint, I usually don't mix that much at a time.
Right. Does Pache still make airbrushes?
Yes, they do. And that was like my second airbrush was Pache. And I had probably 4 different types of Pache. I use an Iwata now, which is my favorite, an Iwata HPBC. It's for very fine work.
Wow.
You can spray a dot the same size as a period in a book at the end of a sentence. Chuck Close used,
Yeah.
too. And
Right,
his paintings
right,
are
right.
huge if you know his work. There'd be 90 inches, by 70 inches, and it would be a face, and you see every pore
Yeah.
in the face, every hair, every little wrinkle, every little thing.
Right.
And he's in all the major museums, and it would take him up to a year to do one of his paintings.
Yeah.
And he would only use a few different colors too. If you get Louis Meisel's book, it explains some of the airbrush techniques that some of these artists, and they'll show you like a 2-inch square example of their airbrush work or their oil work. There's both oil photorealist painters and acrylic.
Louis Measelle was a gallery, right, in Soho.
Still is. Yeah.
Still there?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
No relation.
No relation, the name spelled differently.
Oh, okay.
I was in a
He
gallery
also,
street from him for a while called Jack Gallery, and I was doing abstract work. And I met him and we talked for a while. And I think he might have a home somewhere down here in Florida now too, but he was handling most of that first generation photo group.
That's right.
And his book, you should see the book. It's an Abrams book. It's a great coffee table book. I have a first edition.
He was on West Broadway, myself. West Broadway.
Yeah.
West Palm?
That's Broadway.
Oh, West Broadway. Yeah, he was at the corner of West Broadway and Prince. Now, almost he was like 2 doors, 3 doors in from the corner.
Yeah.
I
This
had,
is
I had
ambitious.
the studio there in '89.
What?
He had
Next to myself. So,
This is ambitious, this painting. Amazing.
This is a developer that lives here in Palm Beach. And he had this photo. This was his photo I worked from. And he had like 4 people on this boat, and he didn't want them on the boat. He just wanted he and the lady that's with him on the boat. And he didn't like the radar that he had because he had changed the radar. So I had to make some changes, you know, on that. But this is down in the islands. This is, I can't think of the island, but it's south of the Bahamas. Tortola. It's the title. The title of the painting is Tack Off Tortola, and this was his yacht. So anyway, he commissioned me to do a painting, and it wasn't a large painting. It was probably 24 by 30 or something like that. This photo might
Was
be
that his wife or?
I don't know if it
somebody
was his wife at the time or not.
else?
It might have been. They might have been engaged.
He didn't get rid of his wife and keep that lady there.
Oh, he wanted her in that picture. I remember that.
This weird.
Seen that one. Okay, this is a painting that is in a friend of mine's bar in Lake Worth, the original. And go to the bottom, keep going up. This is before iguanas were a problem in Florida. I had to go to the West Palm Beach Zoo to find an example of I could take photographs of an iguana. And anyway, he had the title of his bar. It's called Harry's Banana Farm.
Oh.
And the reason he called it Harry's Banana Farm is because he had a softball team. It was a girls softball team that he sponsored, and he couldn't put on it Harry's back door or open door because they wouldn't have a sponsor of a bar to sponsor the girls softball team. And so he called it Harry's Banana Farm.
That's good.
Anyway, this painting is above the cash register there, and it's been there maybe 35 years now. And the bananas, the way I did the bananas is I took a banana and I peeled it back and I sliced it and I used toothpicks and I toothpicked it into a white piece of styrofoam just so I could get the shadow right.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Fabulous.
The iguana, you know, I mean, everything's airbrush here too.
Wow.
And then there you see the perforated at the bottom.
Yeah.
yes.
Wow.
Okay.
Fun.
Wow.
This painting's 50 inches by 100, and there was an Excalibur car that I was painting in the background, and it wasn't working. Excalibur has these pipes that come out the front. Phyllis Diller used to have a collection of 8 of these, I think.
Oh, wow.
And anyway, the paint just wasn't working. And so I had this model with her foot on the running board at the side of the Excalibur. And so I kind of left her in there. And it's called Flash Dance for Jackson, because there's this Pollock look to it.
Oh. I
And there
get
was
it.
the movie Flashdance.
Oh,
Remember
yeah,
that?
when she
She
she's
gets
on the bar and the water comes down and
right.
she's
Yeah.
spinning around.
So that's what I was thinking of.
Wow.
But this was an attempt to really look, exactly like a Pollock, but everyone will, of course, recognize there is that Pollock look to it.
Yeah.
So it's Flashdance for Jackson.
Like
Mhm.
These
This
are
is nice.
We have a lot of Schefflera plants here in Florida. It's sort of an invasive species of plant, and they don't sell them anymore. But it's a waxy green leaf, and it reflects really well. I had several of these in my yard at the time.
Hmm.
There's another painting of
Oh, I
same
like this
same
a
leaf,
lot. Wow.
and
How
I
do you
called
get
it.
the water like that? Those water gels. That's amazing.
Actually, this was outside my house on the side next, just above an air conditioner. That gray in the background is the top of an air conditioner.
Wow.
Hmm.
And it had rained, and this is the way the drops looked.
Yeah, sure.
Amazing.
I called it umbrella for Miro, because Miro, the artist, used to use that symbol that looks similar to the stems in the middle of this painting.
Right,
So
stars. They were like stars he used.
yeah. So I called it
Yeah.
umbrella for Miro.
Oh, nice, nice.
Nice title.
And we saw that, we saw this. Okay, now we're getting over into some of the abstract work. This is,
Oh, here is a detail from your studio, from your sink.
yeah, there's a lot to think, right?
That's good.
But the reason I had to clean my brushes on the wall because I was mixing all this thick paint, and there's no way you could wash it down the drain, and it wouldn't be good for the environment either. So I just wiped my brushes off on the walls when I was doing the thick paint. But this was a type of painting I was doing. I started in the early 80s, and I got in a gallery called Circle Fine Art that had 40 galleries around the country. And they had a one-person show for me in New York on Prince and West Broadway. And they did real well there. And I worked for them. I had a contract with them for 6.5 years.
Wow.
And this was the type of work that
Wow.
I was doing. And they would pick up my work, they would ship it for me, they would put my wife and I in a suite or a resort, and I would go to the shows, and it was just one of the best times of my life.
Right.
And then the Gulf War started, the first Gulf War, and we went into a recession pretty much after that. And their gallery made the gallery chain, they made some decisions that didn't help, and they eventually went out of business. But it was a great 6.5 years while it was happening.
I have a question about this. So is some of this paint actually impasto?
Yes, very thick. And
Okay.
hard.
Because it could be illusionistic, for all I know. Who knows?
It is illusionistic. Everything, and that's the whole thing. It's a type of painting that I don't know who gave it the title, but they called it abstract illusionism.
Okay.
And
Yes.
there are several well-known artists. Jack Lembeck is the name of one. James Havard, George
Okay.
Green. George Green was another. Michael Gallagher. They were all doing this abstract illusionism kind of painting. And it was
Right.
really difficult for me to distance myself from everybody because everybody was using shadows.
Yeah.
And so, I would get compared now and then to those people, even though I was really trying to inject things that they weren't, doing. And so I moved on, from this into other areas.
So like the
Also, Mary picked up a lot of your
yeah.
work. When she came to your class, this shadow appeared also in the painting.
It's true. Yeah.
I remember that.
Hers are very different though, but yes, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We thought about that.
So I have a question.
Does it better?
I have a question. This figure in the center, the pink striated lines,
Yeah.
is that actual, or is that painted illusionism?
No, that's thick paint, and I've
Okay.
dragged a trowel through it. Like
Okay.
the kind of trowel you put down a floor with if you're putting the glue.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what it is. Yeah.
Have diamond tips and they have square tips and things like that. I use those to do that.
Yeah. The only thing I'm missing from this is, wait, don't go yet. The only thing I'm missing from this is the word Heinz, Heinz, on the green cucumber shapes.
Uh-oh, where's that? Oh, cucumber shapes. Okay, I get it.
You
Yeah.
remember those little Heinz pins?
No, I
Nobody
miss,
remembers that?
I don't remember that.
Yes, I
A
do.
little older than I
Do you
am.
remember that, Phyllis?
Yes, the World's Fair.
It said Heinz on a pickle.
Good, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yes.
no, I miss the perforated paper on that painting there.
Yeah.
John King is keeping, you know.
Well, there were a lot of other ones, but I couldn't put them all, on here. Just go up a little more.
I think they are very effective, very nice. I
They're
mean,
fabulous.
this illusionistic thing
Wow.
is striking, you know. It's nice.
Yep. It's beautiful.
Yeah, here you're back to your original stripes.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Oh,
they're,
right.
no, I inject that when I think they'll work.
You're
Yeah.
referring to your own work. That's great. Yeah. Ah, here is that's look at this.
This was a 1995 cover of Playbill,
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
the Kravecas
Kravecas
Center in West Palm Beach.
Nice.
That's our performing arts center here.
This was for their season. They put together a catalog, not a catalog, a brochure.
It's beautiful.
This is 60 by 80. This is 80 inches tall by 60.
Mhm.
Nice.
And that's all the paint. The paint I mixed with gels and modeling paste to get the thickness.
Yeah.
Nice. Wonderful.
Good.
This one up here, can you bring that up?
Okay.
Yeah, let's look at that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't see this one.
No, we haven't seen this.
That's another bed. Mhm.
Nice.
Oh, wow.
Is this the one you're talking about? This is the first painting this is a visualization painting for me. It's when I was teaching school, and I remember back when I was in elementary school, all the blackboards used to be black. And when you cleaned them, you had this film, kind of a filmy
Yeah.
gray.
Mhm.
Never got back to the solid black. But anyway, I did a series of paintings with that in mind, having blackboards. But this painting, I painted this before I had my first show in New York, but I was thinking I'd like to have a show in New York at some time. The shell was to represent life. The snake on the left-hand side at the top, that's a vine snake, which is a very poisonous snake. I go scroll down a little bit. I see the Florida at the top. I
Mhm.
to be an artist and to stay in Florida was sort of the death of the artist. If you were thinking about going to New York, you eventually had to get there. New York is on the right, and there's a plane up there with a wing walker on it. And so New York was this place that was exotic, and people took risks there. So you got the wing walker on the plane.
Right.
And the girl on the right, she's part of that exotic aspect, of New York, and she's holding
Mhm.
like an apple, maybe up to her ear, like the big apple. And I don't remember what's at the bottom. That's
And
about
when was the show in New York?
it. It happened about 9 months later, the first show.
That's cool.
That means 19. Well, what was that?
It was late 80s, the mid 80s, like 80, 85, 86, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Nice.
You saw that, I think, yeah. Another shell painting, once again, looking at, this is part of my collection of shells.
Beautiful.
These are shells I bought, by the way. I didn't find them.
Nobody finds them except those store people. I don't know. I've been on
You're
the-
a painter. Who has time to, walk on the beach or
This
scuba
is
dive?
bed paintings. This is obviously in other colors and things, but
Nice.
I want these sheets and pillowcases.
yeah,
love
I
them.
need to do more of these. In fact, if I had stayed with this one look, I probably would be doing better than I am now.
Wow.
They're nice paintings, they're graphically really.
This is an airbrush, all airbrush painting. And what I had to do, this is before digital cameras. So I had a Nikon and I would go to the beach and take pictures of sea grape leaves. And sea grape leaves, they're all different. Some of them are dying and they're brown. And so this is a combination of maybe 4 different sea grape pictures that I put together because I like the direction of the veins in the leaf and different colors of the leaves. And all of these are fairly healthy. It's hard to find a whole sea grape plant where everything is this green, shiny, waxy, and looking like that. And then I just improvised the ocean behind it. I just made that up. So all that.
This one.
This is a more recent painting.
It's beautiful.
This is done for some collector friends of mine that had started collecting back in the 80s. And they'd purchased another painting and I did this. This was sort of a house gift for them. It started out as
Wait a minute, I have a new house. You didn't give me anything.
this started out as a demonstration painting for my class at the Armory. And I decided to go ahead and finish it.
I noticed that there's like a texture on this painting. So what is that? Was that just you rolled it with a roller, the gesso or something?
Are you talking about the butterflies? Or
No, there's actually, in just
it's a small painting, and you're seeing the tooth after it's been gessoed a couple times. That's the tooth.
Right. So you're gessoing with a roller.
No, not with a roller. It was brushed on.
So just the tooth of the canvas, or is that actually the stipple
Well,
into the paint?
I've gone over it several times.
Yeah. Okay.
It's kind of lumpy in little
Yeah.
areas. Then I wanted to make it look like there's sort of a cellophane kind of coating on
Feel
top
like
of it.
that.
And the butterflies are photocopy transfers. This is something else I teach
Oh,
at the
that's
Armory.
true. Yeah.
And so when you do those, they get somewhat distorted, somewhat they break up, and they actually, I think, are more interesting, than the whole butterfly.
It's very dreamlike. Wait a minute. This is my painting until this part.
Yeah.
You need a little curtain on that section that you can open and close.
My son lives in England, and I wanted to try to find a gallery in his hometown there where he was. It's called Ipswich, England, and it's north of London. And I sent them this painting, and they sold it. But it's called Abstract Dream.
Oh, that's good.
Because it's sort of like someone, underneath the painting with a dream.
Yeah.
That's great. That's a great combination of
And you've seen this one?
techniques. You've seen this one. And this is one.
This is closer to what I've been doing, for the last 15 years or so. And it is layers. Everything I've been doing recently has to do with layers of paint and scratching through using a putty knife or other large things to scratch through to the colors underneath. I've used metallic paint on this one.
I like this a lot because
I do
think
too.
it has a lot more depth. It doesn't have the intense color and the shadows, but I think it has a lot of movement and it has a lot of dimension.
Mhm.
I think this is really successful.
Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, they all are excellent, but I
Yeah,
like.
yeah.
Can you scroll
Scroll.
so we can see the bottom of the painting as well?
Sure.
So
Okay, I
Skip,
see.
you became now in the last 10 years or whatever more abstract in that sense, then, right?
Yes.
As I understand. Okay.
Yeah.
So there is also.
The reason for going so much towards abstraction is, to tell the truth, I kind of lost the joy of painting photorealist work because it was tedious. It was
Yeah.
work. It wasn't labor so much because I enjoyed doing it, but it was tedious, and
Yeah.
I knew what the painting would look like pretty much before I finished it, before I even
Right.
started.
Mm.
And it was just a matter of doing it. And
understand.
there wasn't any spontaneity. There wasn't any room for spontaneity other than choosing the subject matter.
Right.
But these paintings, I don't have a plan. And so it's all layering. And I start with one layer, and that layer might suggest what to do
Right.
next
Yeah.
layer.
I like it.
That's
It's a
interesting.
good direction. It's a
Nice.
good place to be. Just
Yeah, absolutely.
Love
I think it's good that you know.
This is beautiful
This
too.
this pool was one of the reasons I bought the house that I'm living in right now, because I saw possibilities with all these reflections and things in the pool. And this is a friend of mine's daughter that came over to swim one day.
Mhm.
And you've seen this one.
It's a steak lady. And I think we're good.
That might be it.
that's quite a
If you
lot
want
to
to
see,
see, if
quite a lot to
you'd like
look at.
see more, you could go to my website. It's my last name, measelleart.com.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And you spell your last name. Can you spell it?
Measelle.
Okay.
It's measelleart, one word.com.
Okay. Great.
And if you go to archives, you'll see the photorealist work. In the beginning, recent work is more abstract work, and the site is not up to date. There's still a lot missing from, especially of recent work.
But were you able to show already this new, as since you do this abstract work? Did you have any shows?
I have been. A lot of them have been like institutional shows rather than gallery shows, like the Armory Art Center in West Palm Beach is one place. I've had two one-person shows there, in 2015 and 2020.
Mm-hmm.
One in 2020 was in the middle of the pandemic, and very few people showed up, especially older people. They weren't coming out at that. But I also, the Cultural Council in Lake Worth, I've shown there before, and that's about it as far as local, anyway.
Right.
But I'm not exclusively with any gallery right now. One of the problems I've had recently is that after my Norton show in 1975, I had a lot of people that started collecting the work and buying multiple paintings. And that was in 1975 all the way up into the 90s. But everybody got old, and including me. And so they didn't have any more room. They'd already, a lot of them had, 4 or 5 paintings. They would come back every few years and see what I was doing. And it was sort of a steady stream. And their kids' taste in art was totally different than their taste. And so anyway, I've been just working out of my studio, and it's still mostly, word of mouth, and a few of these, like I said, like institutional shows. They're nonprofits and places like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very
I
interesting.
think that was a fabulous presentation. Thank you so much.
Very much. Yes.
Thanks.
I have
Very
still,
interesting.
I have still a little bit a stupid question, because when I was very young, I was also interested, maybe, I tried several things out, and also photorealism thing, and I made this projection on the wall, and then I saw always the shadow of my hand,
Yeah.
and that it bothered me so much that I gave up.
Ah,
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. How is there a particular smarter way that you don't see the shadow of your hand when you touch? And if you know, if you want to trace something, it's like you have always to take the hand away and then you see it's right. Or you know, I didn't get that in a way at that time. You know, I mean,
Well, you know how
click here.
the way to resolve that is you have a photo, an 8x10 photo of what you want to paint, and then you turn off the projector and you've already maybe put some of your line work down, and then you work more from the photo.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
You turn on the
Yeah,
photo.
that's what I was.
If you need to see how accurate you are, you turn on the projector again and
I
see
see.
what you're doing.
Okay. Oh.
Audrey Flack, though, she worked in the dark. If you know, there's a book of her, and in the back of the book, it shows her with the
Wow.
projector on, and she's got like a light colored shirt on, and you see the projection on the back of her shirt as well as canvas. And she was doing, you know, 6, 8 foot size canvases too.
What's her name?
Audrey Flack.
Audrey Flack. Okay.
Recently.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Steve. Yeah.
I found them very interesting, and I love the reflection part of every painting.
Thank you.
The softness of it. I think that's where you lost yourself in it, and I love them. Very nice.
Thank you.
You know, when in the history of painting, the equivalent of losing yourself in, as like what Phyllis just said, that she felt like, you know, you can lose yourself in the actual painting in these very abstract areas where everything is diffuse
Yes.
or distorted, you know, in these strange reflections. And the equivalent of that, you know, as far back as the Renaissance was when the masters painted drapery.
Mhm.
Oh,
They
wow.
just, it's totally abstract,
They got in
right?
it.
There's
Yeah.
just the drapery, the folds of the cloth, of the textiles, of curtains, and it's just all, you know, really observation and looking at the complete abstract, you know, changes in light and so on and so forth. And that's pure painting.
Yeah. I did a whole series of these paintings called Ghost Tarps, and they were all mostly black and white, and they're large canvases up to 12 feet, some 15 feet. And they were done mostly with black and white, and I did photocopy transfers in areas to kind of tease you to look around. But when I was painting these, because of the different blacks and whites that I was using, the fact that the paint was transparent in some places and not in others, images would sort of ghost through. It's sort of like looking at clouds. You saw a figure, you saw a dog, you saw something, and they would just turn up. They would just appear. And I would leave those if I liked them. Whereas
Yeah.
most, when they're at that place, they just keep going because they don't feel it was purposeful or it's not important, maybe not to that particular work of art.
Right.
But I've done a whole series of those, and it was a meditative kind of thing, and you just, without any plan, these things would show up. I don't have an example on here. If you look at my website, I think there are a few examples of that.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I'm on Instagram as just skip.measelle.
Oh, okay.
I'll
I'll have to check that out.
Okay.
I think that what's really interesting about your work is that it's so varied, and I think you're not just a great painter, you know, you're so skillful. I mean, you're like one of those masters, you can paint in any style pretty much. But I really love how you push yourself to learn different techniques.
Mhm.
And you would have been like years ago, what do they call that? When they trick your eye in French,
Trompe-l'oeil.
Yeah, trompe-l'oeil. Like I could see you would have done those beautiful mosaics,
Mhm.
you know, in Europe, and you know, you have such a great way of looking at space and understanding how to kind of use different techniques to, I don't want to say trick the eye, but
Some people use fool the
fool the eye. But Skip's such a wonderful teacher also there's a way that he's been painting that I just couldn't really understand how he did it. And I'm sorry we don't have it. We'll have to have you back. He crumples the canvas
Right.
and then he spray paints it from
Yeah,
one
yeah.
side. And then it looks so dimensional. It's
Yeah.
crazy. You
Mhm.
know, so he's really a master at different techniques like that. And I really applaud that. Plus, I want to say, you're an excellent colorist.
Oh, thank you. Part of the technique thing for me was I've always been teaching. It's part-time always, but since 1978, I've been full-time at just my painting. But I teach now. I was teaching one class a week at the Armory. Now I'm teaching two because one of our great instructors passed away recently. And I've
Well,
taken,
Mark Cohn, he was on the
Yeah.
show.
Right, sure.
he's a great friend of mine. And
Oh,
but anyway, teaching, you know, there I read somewhere, I think it might have been a Richard Bach, in a Richard Bach novel or something. You teach what you most need to learn.
hmm.
And I've always thought about that because when I'm teaching, I'm not thinking that I'm also learning. And so my students are teaching me too, because they're all like doing
Totally.
I've advised or suggested they do. And so I've got like 10 to 20 people doing things, you know, experimenting for me. And I
That's a good way to
and I
look
can
at it.
run with some of the things that I see them doing.
You're not supposed to tell them that though. You're not supposed to like divulge that. That's our secret.
I don't have secrets too. I had teachers that had secrets, but I don't believe in that. No.
I don't either. I'm
Share
joking.
all your knowledge, you do. That's so nice.
Yeah.
I'm joking, but I felt the same way because I met all of these people through teaching at the Art Students League, and I concur with everything you just said. You learn a heck of a lot more than you think you're teaching.
Yeah,
I
right.
think it's also when people ask you about a recipe and you tell them how to do it, but you don't tell them one thing. It's always yours is best, you know.
Well, it's the progression. It's not, you can tell them the formula, but if there's 10 different layers, they're never going to figure it out. That's like the lottery, trying to figure out, you know, which comes first, which comes next, and something like that. But I'll tell, if you know, I'll help them. But usually you see that everyone does it differently, no matter what
Absolutely.
information you get.
And everyone, you know, in the end, everyone, you know, I mean, to be a successful artist, you know, or I mean, just successful meaning satisfied, self-satisfied, you have to find your own way.
Mhm.
You know, so no matter what you're taught or no matter what the recipe is, you have to find your own way. And then something great happens out of that. It's unique.
Yeah.
I call it finding your hook.
Yeah.
You got to find that thing that gives you some identity that
Yes.
you can call your own, which is almost impossible, you know, because
It's very difficult.
somebody's already done that, you know, in some way.
Absolutely. Always.
Yeah.
That's right.
And also interesting that also even it's photorealism, you can distinct, you know, even it's car or whatever, you see basically this is from that person, that's from this artist.
Yeah.
You know, right? It's like
Yeah.
there is also a sort of signature in the painting, you know, a person, something personal, even it's so sort of not. I'm not saying unpersonal, but you know, something. So how do you say?
Skill.
Unique.
Oh, you know, which. Well,
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Like I was saying earlier, there's so many different ways for everyone to do these things, but there's always going to be, and the less informed I think someone is, the more they want to associate you with what they know. And so to anyone, any type of painting that drips or runs or anything, oh, that's a Pollock looking painting, you know, or anyone who does anything with a scribble, that's a Cy Twombly, you know, looking thing. Anyone, they want to pigeonhole you. They want to put you in a category that they know,
Right.
you know, and so that's throughout the art world.
Yeah.
That's
Takes a
true.
long
I
time.
tell my students, my main thing that I'm looking for in anybody's work is it interesting?
Mhm.
And if it's interesting, I'll stop and look at it. I don't care
Right.
what the
Absolutely.
technique is. But if it doesn't catch me, then I keep walking until I see the next thing or something that I find interesting.
Right. Absolutely.
Fabulous.
That was wonderful. Can you tell us a little bit about the way you discovered art when you were a child, or at
Yeah.
what point did it start, or you think it started?
I had a lot of great influences, and one of my parents, when I was in elementary school, I wanted to play some kind of a musical instrument. And one of the reasons was I liked the black cases they carried their instruments in, you know, the clarinet case, the flute case, all those black cases. They get on the school bus with those black cases. And I thought, I want to have one of those black cases with this. And my parents didn't like noise. And so they said, well, how about these crayons and this watercolor and you can build models and all these quiet things. And so I never did learn anything about music, but I got all the art material that I wanted, at that time. And I also had teachers, like at Thanksgiving, Easter, Christmas, any holiday, Halloween, the teachers would give you these subjects to paint or draw. So at Christmas, I did candles and wreaths and stuff. And the other kids and the teacher would like it, so I get that warm, fuzzy pat on the back, kind of thing. And
Right.
at Thanksgiving, you had the turkeys, everybody was doing turkeys. And so I was encouraged early to try and do these things. And my ego loved it. And so I just continued. Yeah,
Makes sense.
it is.
You were so talented.
Big
In
story.
sports, also in sports, same kind of thing happened. If I was doing well in sports, and I was, through my younger years anyway, you could lose yourself in that sport when you're doing well. I played basketball and baseball mostly, but when you're in that gym and there's, maybe 200 people in the gym, you don't even notice them when you're doing well, when you're in that groove.
In the zone.
And the same thing happens in painting.
Yeah.
Or in any type of art, I think. It's just getting into that groove, like you said, and it's meditative and time flies.
You're in the now.
Yep, very
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm blessed, I feel, that I've been able to do this and,
That's the right word to
move
use.
on up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're blessed to have had you here for our presentation, and
Yeah.
we thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me.
Fabulous.
Yeah,
You were
thank you.
incredible.
Thank you, Marie. Thank you, Marie, for
Oh.
setting this up and having Skip join us today. It's been great.
Oh,
Well, I enjoyed it. Thank you.
pleasure.
It was our pleasure.
Okay, we are going to